Hey, welcome to Valid Answer with Scott and Marshall. Let me put our names up because we don't have a producer to do that for us today. Hold on.
Well, I'm Marshall, and this is Scott, and today we have sort of a semi-special episode in that, well, it's Scott's birthday.
It's actually my birthday today. If you don't know what date this is, if you're watching this afterwards, it is November 4th. So going forward on November 4th, you can just send me those checks, you know.
National holiday.
National holiday. Yeah, right there. So yeah, it's my birthday. It's I don't know. Celebrating birthdays is kind of interesting. Here, let me put up our logo, and I'll tell you what I'm talking about. I think it's kind of like the. Oh, hold on. Keep us going here.
The expert over here.
I know, trying to do two things at one time. My kids, normally one of my kids is our producer who runs the computer and stuff like that on the other side of the room usually. But both of my kids are at on my birthday, actually. Both of my kids are at their school at BCHS. They're both part of the fall play. Gabriel is actually playing 3 or 4 roles, one major role, a little role, and then a couple just like a person who has to come in and say a line or do something. But he's playing multiple roles in the play, and then Josh is actually got recruited. He's not in the drama class or anything like that, but he got recruited to run the lights because he's a tech person. So they're running that today, and then we have another person who named Peta, but he's out of town, so like there's no other person that could produce the show. I'm like, okay, well
now
for today,
it's all you.
Now it's all me, so I have to go off stuff like that. But yeah, celebrating birthdays, it's kind of interesting. It's kind of like the original, it's kind of like the original participation trophy. You know, hey, congratulations, you were born.
You exist.
You exist. Like I didn't have anything to do with that, but you know, thank you very much. So yes, it is my birthday, November 4th. I remember, oh gosh, I don't know if it was 1 or 2 days. I'd have to go back. I didn't have a chance to go back and look at it on the calendar to find out. And maybe I was wrong. Maybe I remember this in 1992 when I turned 18 years old back in the 1990s, just after our senior year. 1992, I missed being able to vote in that election by like a couple of days. Like I think the voting was like on November 2nd or 3rd. That year on that Tuesday, and my birthday was like the next day or the day after, and I turned 18 after.
Yeah, I got to vote.
Yeah, you got to vote. You got to vote in that one, but I didn't get to cast my vote against Bill Clinton, and because of that, he won. It's all my fault, so you can blame me.
There you go. Never lament growing old and having birthdays. It is a privilege denied to many.
Ooh, that's right. What is it? What is the most potential or most valuable property in the world? Is a cemetery with all the unmet.
Yep, people are dying to get in there.
Yeah, and all the unmet expectations and all of the unmet potential that's lying in the ground there. So carpe diem, seize the day. Enjoy your birthdays. You only have a limited number of them. I am on my 44th today. So I know I don't look a day over 45, so that's good.
Know. I like birthdays because, people who have the most birthdays also live the longest.
That's right. Studies show that people who have more birthdays tend to live longer.
That's right. That's right. Now, actually, I don't have a birthday.
However,
I don't have a birthday.
Yeah, but just remember that 1 out of every 1 people die. I mean, that statistic is
it's a rough stat.
Yeah, it's a rough stat. So.
Yeah, but I don't have a birthday. Just so folks know, I do not have a birthday. I have a birth month. So every March.
That's the way Jennifer's mom treats birthdays. Like, because Jennifer's birthday is September. Oh, September. Okay, well, all of September, it's your birthday. I try to just get as much as I can out of one day. I figured today is the day. Today is the day. I'm going to make a Lord of the Rings reference. Today is the day that I should be able to go to H&M, and in the mall, because I can say to my wife, it's my birthday. I want it. Smeagol from Return of the King. Okay, yeah, I'm a geek.
Well, anyway. So let's talk about the election.
The election coming up in 2 days. Just want to say, if you're a Republican, get out there and vote. Democrats, just stay home. You're fine.
No, blue wave, right? Blue wave.
I don't even want to make a prediction on that. I don't know what's going on.
The early returns suggest that young people are voting in record numbers.
Yep.
They are breaking records by far, like 100%.
And they're the most informed.
Well, so, they are out there and they are voting, but I want everybody to have a voice
Yep.
It does not matter whether we agree or not. The way
doesn't matter if they're informed or not.
Works, well, it does matter, but that's why we do this show.
Yep.
But the way democracy works is we all inform ourselves and then we all participate.
Yeah, so
participation isn't just punching the thing and getting the sticker. It's also this homework part that we all have to do.
That nobody wants to do. Everybody just looks at the signs and like, well, that's the sign that I saw the most. So
yeah. Or they get the little card in the mail.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I'm just getting buried in these little, mailings, these little flyers that they're mailing out, and it's ridiculous.
You've been getting the texts?
Yes,
I've been getting texts. I'm like,
messages.
Oh gosh, I want my phone to be like, this is like me. This is how I do work. This is how I communicate. I don't want to be interrupted on this thing with phone calls, like 3 or 4 or 5 phone calls every day, 2 or 3 texts every day from advertising. It's just like, and I don't want to change my number because everybody I know has my number. Not that they remember my number. I mean, we don't live in the day and age where people remember numbers anymore.
I remember important ones.
Yeah, I know a few, but I mean, I know my mom's home number. Like, I know my mom's home number, but I don't know my mom's cell number. And I only know my mom's home number because it's the same number that I had when I was living there. It's the same house, same everything from, 30 years ago when I was, 30, 40, going way back in time when I was living there. So, but yeah, we have those. I don't know any of my...
You had to crank the phone to make the call go through.
Hey, no, but we did have a rotary phone.
We had that when I was young too.
Yeah,
that was the norm.
There was a play that my son was part of, and part of the play is a different play. It's not the one that they're doing now. It's a different play where the kid comes out and goes to a phone and it's a rotary phone on there. And I leaned over. I was next to him. He was standing next to the Ann O'Neill, who was the teacher. I go, oh my goodness, I'm impressed that they know how to use that. She's like, no, I had to show them all. They had no idea what to do with the rotary phone. It's funny for us. It's not like we should expect them to know how to use it because it's not there. I mean, I'm sure there are people from, generation before us who laugh at us because we don't know how to hitch up a buggy, but or how to, I don't know nothing about putting a bit in a horse. So, I mean, it's just different times, but it is just funny because you look back at your own self and you're like, wow, all the things that we used to do that are meaningless now, like all the things with, there's
nobody makes buggy whips anymore.
I know nobody makes buggy whips, and we all cry about that.
Yeah.
So California general election Tuesday, November 6th, 2018. We've got our voter guide right here. It's got all the stuff in, and it's just so much, right? All of this gobbledygook of legalese and rhetoric, and how do you get through this?
I just vote straight Democrat.
Okay, good. That's an education.
No, I don't. Of course not. No, you really do have to take the time, at least set aside an hour or so, and actually read through, the basics. What's really cool about this guide is while it has so much legalese in it, it also has some very brief summaries that are very brief and to the point. So even though it's thick, you can actually get through the stuff that you're going to vote on within just a few minutes. You just take a minute or two and look at it. Nobody expects you to read the full text of the law. However,
is the full text of the law actually in here? It's not, huh? Even the first.
No, not the full text of the law, but there are.
Even this, yes,
there's like a more detailed synopsis is in there though. And nobody expects that you're going to read all of that. However, if you think it's important to you, I would strongly encourage you to do so.
Yes.
However, that's asking a lot of people when you've got football games going on and you've got, family things going on and the shopping season is already kicking off and all of
Christmas
this stuff going
needs to stay in its place. December is for Christmas. We haven't even gotten to Thanksgiving yet. I mean, let Christmas stay in your place.
Starting.
Stay in your place. Yeah, there's that. I saw a meme that showed it said there's 2 kinds of people. One showed Buddy the Elf from with the what was his name? Will Ferrell playing.
The name of the movie is Elf.
His name is Elf, and he's sitting there going, Christmas, like they say, and then below it is the guy from Lord of the Rings standing at the wall going, so it begins.
Right.
So there's 2 kinds of people. I might be closer to the guy who's like, so it begins.
There's a couple websites.
Are you pumpkin spice or no pumpkin spice?
No pumpkin spice.
Okay, so at least we agree on one thing. We are not pumpkin spice people. Sorry,
I'd rather have my coffee black. But anyway. So there are some websites. There's Ballotopedia is one. There's also the Secretary of State maintains a website which basically has almost word for word the exact same information in the guide.
But also if it's the now is it actually associated with, is it actually a government?
Yeah, it's the Secretary of State.
So
it's the State Secretary of State.
Isn't that a person who's appointed by whoever the governor is? Like, wouldn't there be some kind of bias?
No,
wouldn't
because
you expect a bias in that?
They're required to be, very objective, and the same as how this guide is produced. Remember, that's one of the state's duties.
Yeah.
The state has a duty to provide objective information, factual information, so that voters can make a decision regardless of whether or not our elected officials like it.
Yeah.
Our elected officials don't get to decide what's on the ballot.
But they do get to decide who the people are who puts it on the ballot.
No, we as citizens in California, and this is not necessarily true in all the states, but in California, we can actually, with a very small number of signatures, get an initiative on the ballot.
Yeah, relatively speaking, it's what, 600,000 signatures or something like
relatively
that?
Low,
relatively speaking,
given the population of California.
Given the population. But it's not easy to get that. But
you have to put some work into it, and you have to organize. There has to be some general interest.
In fact, one of the big ones on here is that, right? Wasn't the gas tax repeal? Was that Prop?
That's Prop 6.
Prop 6. That is one of the ones that was put on there by a signature measure. Actually, all these were signature measures.
I think they are. I could
Maybe
be
it's not
wrong.
so critical of that, but are there different levels of like so many signatures for this type, so many signatures, or is it all the same?
No, I think once you're in, you're in.
Gotcha. So all of these propositions, then because the propositions can only be put by the people.
No, corporate interests often put propositions.
I'm sorry,
on the ballot.
but state legislators don't do anything. There's no state official who puts it's all done by the
state
people. I'll put people in quotes. It's not done by an arm of the government. It's always done by the people.
Right,
gotcha.
right. These are private initiatives,
gotcha.
But they're not necessarily. Okay, cool. Yes, they could be a corporation, it could be an organization, and it could just be concerned citizens. What you're going to find is a lot of the sponsors on here are actually corporate interests.
Yes,
and you've got to follow the money if you want to get to the root. That
is one of the tricks that I have. I have a set of tricks for going through this, and that is one of them. I look at who's it sponsored by.
Yes, it's massive because these propositions are deliberately and deceptively worded. They are certainly deceptively titled.
Yes.
And they do this. I mean, read one or two titles. Can you pick out a title there?
Well, I mean, one authorizes bonds to fund specific housing assistance programs.
Well, no, something that talks about like safety or accountability. It's the safety initiative.
Is this the actual title of it?
Yes, that's the title of the proposition. But there's going to be some in there. And you will see that the title literally reeks of bias. Like if you are opposed to this initiative, you are somehow opposed to public safety.
Right.
Or you are opposed to clean drinking water, or you are opposed to veterans or something else. And they drop these buzzwords into the title so that a person who doesn't put a lot of thought into the voting process, who doesn't do any of the homework or use any of the tricks that Scott is going to share with you, ends up simply saying, well, I support veterans, click.
Yeah.
And now you've casted a vote. But the way these are, look at Proposition 8, I think, is the biggest one.
Gotcha.
Proposition 8, which is about dialysis.
Yeah.
Corporate money has bankrolled the No on Prop 8 initiative, so much so that you can't turn around without somebody telling you that if Prop 8 passes, everyone's going to lose their dialysis. They're going to die. Which is absolutely ridiculous, and it's far from the truth, because the fact of the matter is the dialysis clinics are not going to kill the geese that are laying golden eggs for them. They're making a killing off American taxpayers who often foot the bill for dialysis, because dialysis is one of those treatments where it's publicly funded. And so Proposition 8 requests that there be more standards, that instead of treating people like cattle and going through an assembly line process when they go for their dialysis, you actually have to have more than just like one nurse, I think, on call, which is like they may have just one nurse in the whole facility. They don't have any doctors at the facility. People report that they're treated like cattle as they go through. So in an effort to create some kind of standards, some kind of staffing standards and quality of care standards, they've introduced the proposition.
So is this one of the deceptive titles, because it says regulates amounts outpatient kidney dialysis clinics charge for dialysis treatment?
That actually is very straightforward, because what it does is it caps how much a clinic can charge the taxpayers for providing dialysis.
Mm-hmm.
It also says that they have to accept payment from all people who will pay, including other insurance companies. They can't say we're not going to accept that insurance. No, if the insurance offers to pay, they have to accept that. And I think that they don't like accepting it because
rebates and penalties if charges exceed the limit.
If the companies are too profitable, if they make too much money, and right now I think they're making somewhere well upwards of $1 billion a year in California alone.
Mm-hmm.
If they make too much money, then they have to rebate the insurance companies and possibly even the individual patients, the people who are paying. They have to rebate them. They have to send them money back.
So if this passes and they say we don't want profits taken away and they close their clinic.
But why would they close if again, these are the geese that are laying golden eggs for them. So the worst thing that's going to happen is they're going to have to put up with lower profits. So nobody is going to say they're not going to make profits. They're going to make profits no matter what, but they're going to make less profits.
But if they did close, I remember as a kid going with my grandmother when she had her dialysis treatment. And we didn't go to a clinic. We went to Memorial Hospital, and there was an appointment, and she had to be there, and she showed up for the appointment, and they did the dialysis, and then she left. And if people have to go to hospitals, is that if clinics do decide we don't want to mess with all this and they do close, so that's to say that because that's the threat, is that necessarily? I mean, are people going to die in the street because they're not getting the dialysis treatment?
Yeah, if you don't get dialysis, it is
but I'm saying
death.
But I'm saying if there's not a clinic anymore.
The numbers
can they just go to the hospital
who require dialysis for some reason have increased substantially since the 1980s.
Okay. And this was the 80s that I was going with my grandmother. I was like 8 years old.
And I think it was in the 70s. I think it was Nixon maybe, or maybe even President Johnson, but I think it was Nixon who made it law that dialysis would be publicly funded. As I understand, now I could be completely wrong about this, but the information that I have assimilated on this proposition is that going way back to the 70s, it was agreed that the public would pay for people's dialysis because dialysis was so expensive that the average person simply could not afford it. And they had a situation where hospitals literally had death panels who decided who does and who does not get the dialysis. And if people did not have the $300,000, and mind you, this is back in the 1970s, then they did not get the dialysis and they simply died. They suffered kidney failure. And so there's a lot more people now who need dialysis.
We go back to the Star Wars versus Star Trek. I remember that scene in Star Trek 4 where Dr. McCoy is back in like 1984 and he's in the hospital and he asks that lady, "What are you in for?" She's all, "Dialysis." He's like, "What is this, the Dark Ages?"
Yeah, well, and
he's all he gives her a pill, "Take this," and she's all, and then later on she's like, my kidney's fully functional. Sorry, anyway, I get distracted. Something comes up, movie quotes. I'm like, oh hey, and so yeah.
But there you go. I'm very troubled by this proposition, by the opposition to the proposition, because to me, as I understand it, and the information that I have assimilated, is it's blatant profiteering and taking advantage of the tax-paying public.
Right.
On behalf of at least 2 firms that provide dialysis and probably many more. And I would like those people to be answerable to the public for the profits that they are reaping at our expense. And this proposition goes at least part way towards rectifying that issue.
Well, pointing at this proposition here, I'm going to show you one of the things when I go through this, one of the things that I do, because there's so much that it describes. It's almost legalese, and it's like, well, what does this mean with here? And then you have the arguments, the argument for and the argument against. And the person for is always going to have all this kind of stuff here, and the people against. But what I like to read, the first thing I go to is the rebuttals. The rebuttal arguments, what those will do is they do 2 things. One, they identify whatever is the most egregious thing wrong with the argument, and then they defend it. And then, and both sides are going to do it, but typically that gets it down to the nitty gritty to where what is, like you look at the defense of this in this particular one, and the rebuttal to the argument in favor, again is mostly talking about, if they miss one, they're going to die. And it's like this particular one's fear mongering. And, but I also look at the people behind it, and that's where it also kind of tips me, because it says the people behind are the president of American Nurses and Association of California that are against it. The president of the California Medical Association is against it. So I'm like, well, those seem like,
reputable organizations.
Reputable organizations, reputable people who are against
But
this.
what does it mean to be for or against on both sides?
Yeah.
What does that mean? Does that mean that you got, just a few signatures? Who speaks for those organizations? And how divided are those organizations on the topic? And do those organizations also have a financial interest?
Yeah.
Which, of course, they're going to. We talked briefly, and we'll talk about this more when we get to it, Proposition 11, opposed by labor unions, So obviously unions have an interest. And so there's a lot of information to process and filter here.
But you can find a lot by going to the rebuttals. You can find a lot of basically when the rebuttals are full of here's what they said and that's not true. Here's what they said and that's not true. Here's what they said and that's not true. And the other rebuttal is rhetoric. I'm like, okay, so they really don't have very much to stand on. If the rebuttal is full of more rhetoric like there was.
It's a great trick.
Yeah, because if the rebuttal is full of rhetoric, then they really don't have anything to rebut.
A voting hack.
Yeah, a voting hack. So look at those rebuttals. If the rebuttal is just full of more of the same rhetoric that was in their position, then they really don't have a whole lot to go on. They really don't have, it's just more and more rhetoric. Well, they want people to die or, whatever it is it's going to be. If it's more, your rebuttal is your chance to tear apart what the other person said about it. And if all you have is more rhetoric, then you really don't have a solid position. So a lot of times that will at least tip my hat one way or the other, is going straight to the rebuttals and see what they're saying. And if the rebuttals are a little more complex than that, then I kind of jump back up. I go backwards. I go from the rebuttal to the argument and then to the actual wording of it. Or I'll start with what is this about? Okay, cool. Rebuttals. Okay, that's clearly this one. Or they're kind of back. So what do they say? What do they say? And then but it's almost a reverse engineering of how the booklet is laid out, because you'll find the most basic arguments and the detriments to either side in the rebuttals. So that's my little trick for going through these and kind of cutting through all of everything.
The doublespeak.
All the doublespeak, yeah. Because the rebuttal just kind of, it lays bare their basic defense of their position by rebutting that person's opposition. And if you all you have is rhetoric to go against their opposition, then you don't really have anything. But let's look at 11, because I found this very interesting in 11, that of all of the tens and hundreds of thousands, of all the tens and hundreds of thousands of politicians involved in politics in California, not one politician or political group or anybody could come up with a no argument against 11. I mean, really?
I'm opposed to it.
And you're opposed to it. Why is there no public entity that's opposed to it? Why is there no, of all the politicians in did they just not have enough time to put it in? Was it a last minute, because there's literally no argument against proposition was submitted. There's not a politician in California who could put a one paragraph argument against Prop 11, yet you're against it. Tell me about it. Tell us what Prop 11 is and why is there so few people against it and yet you are?
And there are people against it. There are organizations.
But why?
I don't know why they didn't get in there. It could be a matter of these guys are not organized. Maybe they don't have their act together. Maybe they're late to the party. Maybe there's a notification process or somebody, well, I thought you were going to do it. No, I thought you were going to do it. The right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing. I don't know why nobody replied to this.
But if it was a big enough issue, wouldn't somebody have gotten behind it and said, hey, we got to do something about it? Who would be that organization to come against this?
Yeah. Well, a lot of labor unions, it's sort of, the man versus the working guy here is what you have. My understanding,
but even labor unions didn't step up for this.
I know, and that's what's crazy. But they've got websites.
It makes me doubt that there is an argument against it.
Sure. Well, let's talk about it. And at the end of the day, even if nobody submits a summary or a rebuttal or a takedown, you still have to use your noggin. You still have to think for yourself rather than parroting other people's talking points or saying, Marsh, who are you voting for? Okay, I'll vote the same way. Really? Think for yourself, because you have your own self-interest. And the way democracy works is everybody more or less votes in accord with their own self-interest. And somehow it just sort of works out, just like capitalism kind of works, right? Everybody acting in their own self-interest, things kind of move along, It works. So let's talk about this. Prop 11 basically says that EMTs will be paid during their meal and rest breaks.
Well, hold on. Does it say they'll be paid during their meal and rest breaks, or does it say they'll have to be on call?
Both.
So
they get paid, but then they're on call.
So then they get extra pay. It's not like they're just being.
They're going to make another hour's worth of pay. Let's say.
Gotcha.
Roughly
So
speaking,
it does
however
compensate.
This works.
There is compensation involved. It's not
yes,
just.
Yes, they're paid for their time
all right.
And their potential work. I don't like it because, first of all, I want my EMTs and other first responders to have breaks. You need breaks because work is grueling, work is taxing, especially when you are dealing with first responders. These people are not allowed to make mistakes. They do make mistakes. You don't always realize it. They're humans, but you don't want them to make mistakes.
What was that line on ER when that show was on in the 90s? We have a bad day, people die.
Well, that's exactly it. When these guys have a bad day, people could die. So I don't want them to have a bad day by being overstressed and overworked and underfed and underrested. I want them to have their breaks. To me, I see it as a safety issue. Now, the way this is being spun in the media is if these people are not on call, they might not be able to respond in the event of a disaster. Now, personally, I think that's bogus because look at something like 9/11. When 9/11 happened, people literally they got out of bed. They weren't working that day. They got out of bed and they reported into work and they went to work. That's what people do.
There's an actor. I don't know if you heard about this. There's an actor named Steve Buscemi. He's kind of got the funny teeth. He's been in a lot of movies. If you know who he is, you've seen him before, and he's kind of stereotyped and typecast and stuff. But before he was an actor, he was a firefighter. And when 9/11 happened, he was in New York at the time and just went in.
He responded
as a firefighter.
And I believe every one of these people would do so if there were a serious enough disaster. But I think the way this works, and I'm not 100% certain because I've not been an EMT, but it is in my mind that when one crew goes on break, another crew has to cover for them. They may even have to bring in another crew that goes around and breaks the crews that are taking breaks.
I know that even in our state-funded, state operated preschool that we have here on our church grounds, my wife sometimes subs over there and licensed
to give people breaks,
and she will come in as the break. They have a person who is a break person. When it's time for them to take lunch, there's a person who comes in and covers that class while that person takes lunch. So
now you are the private ambulance company. Now this passes. You can eliminate that crew and pocket that money, by the way.
But still have to now pay the other crew.
You do, but it's probably cheaper to do that. Why would they spend millions of dollars to tell people to vote yes on this initiative if there wasn't money in it? Follow the money, right?
Follow the money, yeah.
So obviously, I don't know exactly how they profit from this, but this is obviously going to be very profitable for the people who provide the ambulance services. But understand that if you are providing ambulance service, your mission is not necessarily to save lives. Your mission is to get rich because this is a capitalist country. And that's why people do it. People do it because they're good at saving lives and they've figured out a system. But make no mistake, the bottom line is what it's all about, which is why if you've ever had a ride in an ambulance and then got the bill, you understand it's about the money.
Hey, the Joker said it in The Dark Knight. If you're good at something, never do it for free.
Right? And nobody's going to say, hey, don't pay.
Right.
Nobody thinks that people should simply work for free or for charity. It doesn't work that way. We have to exchange goods and services, and money is the medium of exchange. You have to pay for things that people deserve to be paid.
But profits also encourage, especially profits in competition, encourage innovation.
That's right. But how much? How much? Understand this.
The majority.
In December, I was put on an ambulance to take a 100-yard trip across a parking lot from a surgery center to the emergency room. Now, I was able to walk and go on my own. Basically, the surgery center, it was closing time. It was December. It was almost Christmas, and the people wanted to go home. And I had not yet fully recovered from the effects of the anesthesia. So in order to cover their behind, they literally put me on an ambulance. I tried to refuse. They didn't. They very, very strongly discouraged me from refusing. And they put me on an ambulance and literally drove me across the parking lot to the hospital next door. Now, that, of course, was, I think, like a $4,000 or a $5,000 bill. $4,000 or $5,000. Now, my insurance ended up paying that because I had met my deductible for the year.
Yeah.
But had I not, I would have been on the hook for $4,000 or $5,000. Now, you cannot tell me it's not about the money. Mm-hmm. How much is reasonable to take me across the parking lot? What's a reasonable rate? I don't mind even paying a few $100.
I would have done it for $100.
Exactly.
Just letting you know.
I could have called an Uber. I had family there who would have literally. I mean, you could have literally put me in a wheelchair and wheeled me across. It wasn't that far, and dropped me off in the ER. There was simply no need to generate a $4,000 to $5,000 bill for my insurance company for the service that was provided.
Yeah. Well, the problem with that is because the insurance company's going to pay for it.
Well, there's that too, right? So the problem is
as long as there's deep pockets, you can charge.
Yes.
As long as there's a deep pocket. If there was no deep pocket, they would have charged you a few $100 because they knew that's all they could. Right.
And I totally want these people to be paid and taken care of. But a lot of first responders and other people, California Labor Federation and the San Francisco, basically California Labor Federation, that tells you what you need to know, is they're opposed to this because they're afraid that it will set a precedent that other people in other professions will begin losing their breaks and their rest periods.
If they call it an emergency occupation or something.
Right.
Gotcha.
So at the end of the day, these people have some degree of integrity and professionalism. If the emergency is big enough, I have no question they will leave their warm beds on their night off and come into work and
here's
and
the thing
that
here's the opposite argument of it. If you say yes on this, now they'll get paid extra for it.
Well, I understand that, but at the end of the day, it's about
now they will get paid extra.
It's about saving lives.
That. Yeah, and they're going to do it anyway, but now they'll get paid for it.
And I do think they need to make a lot more than they do. I think they make somewhere in the teens per hour. Mm-hmm. You know, I don't know what EMTs make per hour, but I think it's in the teens. And to me, that's ridiculous.
But typically, I believe, I don't know this for sure, but I thought on-call pay is more than standard pay.
It may be. But
I think typically...
This particular question, though, deals with real public safety. And I don't think the public safety issue is that we don't have an ambulance available. I think the public safety issue is this person needs a break. They need a meal. They need rest. So they can do their best work when they do get that call. Because,
I mean, firefighters have to call, they're on call all the time. They just have to go. Why would this job be any different for EMTs?
Well, firefighters do respond to every single call that an ambulance is called out to, but it's usually only one engine. It's not the whole firehouse goes, as far as I understand how that works. And they don't have to fight fires, every single day or all the time. And the firemen go in a support role, as I understand. So the firefighters, I was sexist, I said firemen. The firefighters go to basically assist the EMTs if they need heavy lifting or moving things out of the way or wrapping the people up sort of for preparing them for transport, things like that. So as I understand, the fire department provides a valuable service.
But they don't have the same breaks. They got called out in the same way as well.
But they also live at the firehouse. So when they go back to the firehouse, they have a bed that they can lay down and actually sleep on, and so on. And they can
have gurneys meals. in the ambulances.
Well, I don't think they can lay and sleep on those. But the firefighters actually have a firehouse, which has some of the comforts of an actual house available to the crews. So the firefighters, they're also compensated tremendously more. In every single way. They have pensions and other things that the EMTs don't receive.
But what about police officers then? Police officers are sitting in their cars, and if they're on a break, they're at the drive-through, and then all of a sudden the call comes in. It's right there. They gotta leave. They gotta leave their break. They gotta leave their food. They gotta leave that behind. Why not the special treatment for them as well?
Because this is a private entity rather than a public entity. So because that's one of the key differences is public and private are treated differently when it comes to like emergency services. I don't know if the public EMTs
whether it's public or private doesn't make a difference on whether or not they're tired or hungry.
Correct. And I want all people, whether you're a police officer or an EMT or what have you, to have a break and to have a meal period, to have your rest.
Right. But if it needs to be interrupted, it needs to be interrupted.
And I think these people all have a level of integrity.
Right, but they should be paid if they're going to be interrupted. That's what this is going to now guarantee. Now you're going to get paid extra if your time is interrupted. You're admitting.
The number of occasions.
Hold on. You're admitting they're going to do it anyway. So this makes no difference.
They're going to do it anyway if it's a big deal.
Right, they're going to do it anyway.
These people are going to be like, somebody has indigestion and they called for an ambulance, so now you have to leave your food on the table and run out.
But they don't know it's indigestion until they get there. It could be a heart attack.
But the thing is this is ultimately, I think this issue is about profits rather than public safety, which is why the private industry is spending so much money to tell you to vote yes on the proposition.
Mm-hmm. Because
that's what raises the red flag for me.
Because what they're saying here is that it's probably not. What they're probably not saying here is that they have to have an extra crew to cover those times, and now this is going to save them money, but not having the extra crew. So the negative is going to be now that extra.
So
crew
we're not actually getting any more public safety protection. We're not getting any more coverage than we have before.
Right.
So you and I, we're not getting more value.
Right. It's just that now that extra crew may not have a job anymore.
There's that as well.
Yeah.
There's that as well.
Or because right now the extra crew is coming in when these people are lost, so they're not being bothered right now. Now they'll have to be bothered, but they're not losing anything because they're not the ones going off to it.
But here's what makes me so upset about the Yes campaign and their marketing is they're telling you this is a public safety issue. Well, if they were really dedicated to public safety, they would have that other crew. And
they probably are.
And they're probably not going to have that other crew once this passes.
Exactly.
And the end result is there is no net increase in public safety. In fact, you now have tired EMTs responding to your call.
Gotcha. Okay. 6.
Which one is that again?
Gas tax.
Repeal
the gas tax.
Okay. This we're probably going to differ on. And I am very sympathetic to the call for repeal. I would love for my gas prices to be lower.
Yep.
But generally, I am very pro spending
taking
when it
people's
comes
money.
and spending it on infrastructure projects. But I will grant you this, and this is a big one.
It's been done before, and it didn't get spent on infrastructure.
Yes, the problem is we pay taxes and we don't receive value for the money.
So I'm done paying taxes. I want to send a message that says, no, you cut somewhere else. Don't just start adding more money when you don't know how to spend it. Cut it somewhere else before you take more money from us. That's my biggest thing here, and they can just do that as much as they want. And this is a grassroots. This really was a grassroots. This really wasn't a corporate sponsor. This was a grassroots. No, we are tired of you just constantly taking money and not controlling your budget.
What's a big tax? I mean, what is it? 6 cents or 12 cents a gallon? Or
so it ends up being an extra $1 every time you fill up.
Yeah, which adds up.
It's not,
and it hits the poor more than it hits anyone else. So
exactly.
It's a regressive tax, in my opinion. Nonetheless, I do appreciate infrastructure improvements.
But they're not going to use it for that.
Well,
it's not going to happen.
There was accountability built into the gas tax,
and there was in other ones too. But that didn't.
Well, I don't know about that.
Yeah, there was, and it was. There's always a loophole for them. I don't see how you can be in opposition to this repeal in any way, especially considering, yes, it is regressive, that it hits the poorest people the most, and it just doesn't. It's not going to do what they promise. It never has done. They need to cut and do other things instead of just keep raising taxes. And they need to know from the people that they represent that this is not something that we're going to let happen anymore.
I do sympathize with that position. So
we need more than your sympathy. We need action.
Well, no, I'm probably going to vote in favor of keeping the tax myself, even though I have a number of issues with it.
So you don't vote according to your own.
To me, infrastructure, the infrastructure.
But you already know it's not going to happen.
But it is going to happen. It's going to finance infrastructure. I want to see infrastructure improvements in this state. I want to see the highways repaired and kept in good repair. There's a lot of work being done around our community right now.
Yeah, but
I think this money is partly paying for that.
No, it's not. That's all coming from what Kevin McCarthy got from federal. Okay. All of that construction, all that's happening outside of what California did. All of that is federal money. And I also want the
bullet train built. So
God, for what? For what?
It creates a lot of jobs there.
That's where it's all gone. Billions and billions of dollars into the pocket of people like Feinstein's husband.
I want the train built.
You want him to get richer.
I want the train built anyway.
It doesn't do anything.
Well, not yet. It's not operating, but once it is operating,
but it won't. So,
can you imagine what it's going to do to property values?
Can you imagine
here?
how much it's going to cost if it's costing this many billions of dollars to go from on level ground from one place to another that's just 100 miles away apart over even ground where there's nothing in the way? What's it going to cost to get through the mountains to go to LA? What's it going to cost to get to Sarah? What's it going to cost to be useful? If it's costing this much now for this little section, it is a bloated, going nowhere, throwing away money because they just keep getting more money and stealing more money from us to pay for these stupid things that they're not going to finish, that aren't going to get done, that will balloon out of control. This is absolutely the most corporate money grab from the state ever.
And I agree that we need to address that, but I still think we need to build that train.
We stop giving them money. That's what will address it. Is there any other way that we're going to address that?
If you cut them off of money, we're going to end up living in California is going to turn into the equivalent of a third world country because these people are not going to go hungry. They're going to put it at our expense. We're going to pay one way or the other. And if we cut them off of the income, they're simply going to stop. And then the state will simply decay until the point it becomes ridiculous.
Then they have to make cuts.
No, they won't. They're not going to make cuts unless we demand justice. We have to investigate these people.
Which is what
we have to run them out of office. We have to change campaign finance laws.
That's literally what 6 is starting.
We literally have to clean up.
That's the grassroots. You're turning against the grassroots.
Okay, but 6 is going to pass. I'll tell you that right now. It's going to pass.
So be part of it.
I don't see...
Be part of it.
But
be part of the solution. Be part of the solution, not continuing the problem.
If the movement stops there, plus I think it's the wrong solution. We shouldn't be saying, I'm opposed to this because it raises taxes. No, you should be opposed to it because you're not getting value for the taxes you already pay. And that I understand. And what we need to insist is our insistence should not stop at, I'm not going to pay any more taxes. Because a lot of people, that's where the thinking stops.
Yeah.
And that's where the activism stops. And no, it has to continue and say,
yeah,
regardless of new taxes or not, we have to insist that we receive value for the taxes we pay.
So let's start right here. Let's at least start right here.
Well, I don't know if 6 does that, in a way that satisfies me, the individual.
So it's not enough, so don't do it at all.
No, I don't want to cut off those infrastructure projects. I want those infrastructure projects to continue even if they do contain a degree of pork, and I'm certain that they do. But I also want us to address...
pork,
No, I think that's hyperbole, but I do want us to address the pork issue. And I actually think people need to be prosecuted. I think we need to get
that'd be great.
On that level.
So you seem
but
so
I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. The one good thing about all of this is that we now have a massive infrastructure project underway in the state that's not only creating thousands and thousands of jobs, but when it is completed, even if it's only completed in the Central Valley, it's going to cause property values to skyrocket. It's going to provide an invaluable service to the people and the communities that it connects. And it's going to help take congestion off of our freeway and out of our airports.
To get to Bakersfield.
They are, and that's what's going to happen to your property value. Your property value is going to skyrocket because
now my property taxes go up now.
People will commute.
So now our property taxes are going to go up.
Well, that tends to happen over time.
But now it's going to go up even more because the property has more value.
Again, it's not that I have to pay more. It should be that you should get value for
I'm not
what
getting
you pay.
any value for it. What
then
value
you have to address that.
What value am I getting to go to Modesto?
Well, Modesto isn't where it ends. It's going to end in the Bay Area.
But that's not... No. The part that they're building right now, when it's done, that's what it is.
Okay,
then it's
but
a
that's
whole,
just one segment.
Then it's a whole nother project just like this, except more expensive. Because now they have to actually go through things, not just on flat ground.
I understand that.
It's ridiculous.
So should we have not built the Hoover Dam?
No, we should build...
It cost a lot of money?
No, we should build useful things.
And you know what? There are a few things in the history of America that are as useful as a railroad. Railroads are of immeasurable
100
value.
years ago, yes.
And still today. And in fact, with the way mass transit, the trends that we see in California today, I think the railroad's coming back in a big way because it is the one most efficient system for moving large numbers of people. If you want proof of that, look at China, look at Japan, look at Europe, where they have successfully implemented high-speed rail.
Right, because that's high-speed rail between city and city.
And that's what we're going to do here. Yeah. Los Angeles, San Francisco, Bakersfield, Fresno, Sacramento, massive.
No, but these are so it's not they're going to stop in all these different cities like
Yes.
Amtrak. Okay,
Yes.
so that's not efficient at all.
Well, no, there are different types of trains and services. You have limited and express service, which goes only from point to point. For example, an express would go San Francisco to Los Angeles only with no stops in between.
Mm-hmm.
But then there will be regular service that does stop in between. Regardless, the speed on the rail between the communities is at least double, if not triple, what Amtrak gives you.
Which is about
And so
half
the
what a
end
plane
result-
can do.
Well, I understand that, but you're going to pay a fraction, like 10% the cost of a plane ticket.
You know that for sure.
Yes, because that's how these systems are designed. They work on volume rather than, the way planes work. So the bottom line is I think the high-speed rail project is much needed infrastructure, and it's going to be especially needed in the future. I don't want to throw that away, but I do agree that we need to insist that we receive the value for the taxes that we pay, including on the high-speed rail project.
It
and
will
the
never be
people
done.
who are responsible for the pork need to be found and prosecuted for that.
The problem is they're all relatives of people who would do the prosecuting.
Which is why how we vote matters.
Yes. So let's stop that. Let's all get together and stop that. And let's take this step instead of encouraging it by letting it continue. We can't cover all of them. It's been 45 minutes. Can you believe that we've already done a whole show on this? Get out there and vote. Get informed. Look through those things. Don't just read the signs on the side of the road or the papers
little
that
flyers,
come to you.
because all of that, the commercials on the radio and on TV.
It's nice not having a TV and not being inundated with all this crap.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I had to listen to a radio for 2 hours, and I just turned it off because of all the political ads and the doublespeak, and I knew I was simply being lied to.
All the time.
I'm being manipulated.
Josh, thanks for joining us in good old, I don't know, is it sunny, cloudy, hot, cold, San Luis Obispo? Oh, no,
oh my gosh. Is
Paso
that where he
Robles.
is?
Yeah,
Paso Robles.
Yeah.
Well, Paso Robles gets
right,
pretty
or
warm
is it Tascadero? Sorry.
It's a little better than Bakersfield, but it's closer to Bakersfield.
Thank you for joining us in there. He
climate-wise.
says he's yet to be shocked by his state taxes.
Well, there you go. Yeah, state taxes aren't that out of control. But regardless of whether your state tax is $1,000, $1 million, or $1,
it's
you
worth
deserve value. No, you deserve value. It's not worth it if you're not getting value. And
My
that's
boss
what we
is
need
calling
to do.
me right now. I'll have to call him back in just a moment. So we got to.
He should be watching the show.
We got to get off. I got to give him a call. Thank you for joining us. Valid Answer every Sunday night at 5:00. Right here on kerncast.com and Kerncast on Facebook. We repost this to A Valid Answer on Facebook, and you find us Valid Answer on iTunes podcasts. Email us at avalidanswer@gmail.com. Sponsor us, send us money. It's my birthday. You can sponsor me just because it's my birthday.
Give it
it's
all
great.
to Scott.
We
do have a PayPal link.
We
somewhere.
will split it like 90-10, something like that. So
no, you get all of it. It's your birthday.
so hey,
actually, we'll probably spend it on equipment.
All of your donations that come in today will all come to me. No. They're
going to end up on equipment.
They're going to end up on equipment.
They don't see what we've rigged up here.
Yeah, we got a little bit of rigged up here, and it'd be nice to, Yeah, so thank you. Join us every Sunday night, 5:00, kerncast.com. Until next time, I'm going to lean over, and you're going to say goodbye, and I'm going to stop the program.
All right, everyone. Have a good one. Thank you very much.